President Muhammadu Buhari has recently been assuring Nigerians of the need to remain positive and maintain utmost faith in one indissoluble nation. At various times and in different circumstances, the president has also given generous assurances about the readiness of his government to guarantee the lives and property of every Nigerian. However, with insecurity still unfolding across the country, public confidence continues to slide. President Buhari and his spokespersons of his government have a different view, though, and would like their countrymen to believe they're actually doing a lot in that direction. What are those measures being taken by government which seem not to be resonating with the public? Well, joining us now from our Abuja studio to have a chat about this is Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, an associate professor and head Department of Mass Communication, Baze University, Abuja. Welcome to the program. Good morning, Doctor.
Adeniyi, it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Well, very quickly.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Dr. Tudu and Rufai.
Well, very quickly, the presidency has been saying that Nigerians should focus more on positives. There are positive sides to the Buhari administration, but many Nigerians tend to concentrate on negativity. Now, I mean, as somebody who has been monitoring the Nigerian space for decades, there are certain positive aspects that you think that we should be celebrating about this administration and that skeptics and cynics may have been overlooking.
All right, Doctor, first let me just quickly assure Rufai that I'm just going to take a quick gaze at Tundu's hair, so that he will not go berserk like he threatened to do earlier on, having said that, I think it's important to underscore...
So you like cornrows, right? You like cornrows, and...
Well, we'll talk about that later, Doc.
I hope you don't get accused of sexism. Yeah. But fine, please go ahead.
All right, so I was saying that the call or the concern of government is quite legitimate, because without us being positive, there can hardly be progress, But what is important, what I think they also need to know is that the human mind, is better captured in the face of deviation from norms. And we have had too many deviations from the normative in the Nigerian environment in the last couple of years. News is literally newsier, if it is an outlier. Too many outliers, have come around us irrespective of some of the positives that we ordinarily have taken away. But what I think government is also largely not doing is to be conversational about these deviations, about these outliers. Sometimes we tend to live in denial, just thinking that some of these deviations, outliers, will peter out, we can just paper over them. We need to be much more interactional, much more conversational around them, to be bold enough to take on them. Yes, the spokesmen are doing their job. Some of them, they got into the height of their careers. They were exemplars, before they came into government. And you can hardly can anybody be better than them, before, prior to appointment. So they are competent. They do it very well to the best of their ability. But their efforts are largely limited, by the somewhat relative absence of the principal. Like they say in international relations, the best diplomat is the president of the country, even in communication as well. And the best communication person that we can ever have in this system is the president of the country. But unfortunately, yes, they have told us it's his style, but we have a president, who is relatively not disposed, to too many conversations, largely taciturn. And of course, this is rubbing off largely on the way we perceive the system. The outliers are there, the criminalities criminal acts are going on. We are being shocked every day. Our imaginations are being captured every day, because of the wrongness, disruptions in the system. And it is going to be impossible for us to look away from these things, irrespective of some of the positive side that they want us to emphasize. So we need a government, we need a system that is much more dialogical, not the monologue that we keep having. You see, in communication, as a student of communication, I do know that the best form of communication is the one that is interactional, not the one that is simply informational, simply top-down. We need it to be between the bottom and the up. We need them interacting so that there can be a synergy of purpose, because the business here is about capturing the hearts and minds, but those hearts and minds are not being captured well. They are being captured rather by negative forces, and those negative forces are not being countermanded through a better, through an interactional process that will have helped the government better. An increased engagement, conversations around some of these stress we are having will probably help us to find a lasting solution. But we are seeing less of it, and that's the tragedy of the situation, irrespective of the positives or the achievements of the administration, which they would rather want us to concentrate on.
But how does the government then surmount the increasing polarization? From the government angle, anybody who's a critic, anybody who's making any form of agitation is unpatriotic. They're dismissed as wailers. And from those who are agitating, the government is a complete, stonewalling and not listening, not being responsive at all. How is this going to be bridged? And when you talk about dialogue, between whom exactly? Who are the parties that are supposed to engage in this dialogue?
Yeah, like I said again, as a student of communication, I do know easily that we can put things into information, into communication, as the case could be, and into conversation. But in governance, what works best is when government is conversational. What has happened to the media party that we used to have in those days, where the president would invite media executives and engage them, and they were engaging. And through that process, thoughts and understandings are expanded. What has happened to it? Then what's wrong with us once in a while having town hall, like we had in the period of Obasanjo to some extent? What's wrong with it having town hall, around security questions? They're bringing in stakeholders. Maybe a semblance of it, we see it happening in the National Assembly, just a coordinated arm of government, but that's not enough. We also need it more in the executive, because they have the power, to implement some of the policies that the National Assembly will recommend. Yeah, those kind of engagement, bring in stakeholders, engage them, talk with them, and through talking, deliberative, conversational process, of course, you can come up with some solutions. And ahead of those solutions coming out of those conversations is the fact that they feel a sense of involvement, a sense of inclusion. And of course, it has a way of giving assurance, to the people. Confidence will also grow, that somebody is not being standoffish, somebody is not being withdrawn, somebody is not being aloof or not being away while Rome is on fire. That's the question I think we should be mindful of. And I want to also say that the president, from my own judgment, is above average in terms of their ability to exchange meaning, ability to communicate. But he can deploy this skill, to talk more to us, and you will see that the feeling that we're having now, that the citizens sometimes have that is not there, where's the president, will begin to, to talk. People will begin to ask less questions about the absence of the president. We'll begin to feel his presence. I do not also believe that he's not well-meaning, that he's not well-intentioned, but it's a difference between intention and action. There has to be a balance between the two, or maybe action even surpassing intention, because until that happens, before the populace can feel a sense of satisfaction and a sense of presidential presence in absolute terms to do.
Should we close our eyes to the fact that unemployment is 33%? Should we just, close our eyes and say, oh, it's not happening, and just wish it away and it goes away like that? Should we also close our eyes to the fact that I love to take road trips, across the Shagamu-Benin Expressway, but I can hardly do those road trips because I fear for my life today? Should we just close our eyes to that? Should we close our eyes to all the agitations and just say, okay, let peace reign, and that'll happen? Should we not talk about them, because these are the prevalent issues in society that affects you and me today? Is that what we're hearing? Is that the soundbite? Don't talk about these things and just hope it goes away? We do talk about the good parts too, when things good happen and the government has done well. But should we just close our eyes to the fact that 1.5 billion will be spent on a refinery that currently we are hemorrhaging 10 billion monthly, and it's not refining anything, and you still add $1.5 billion to that? Should we just close our eyes to those things?
Yeah, absolutely, Rufai. It's impossible for us to close our eyes to these failings, these downsides. If we do that, it just means that we are failing in our responsibility as citizens and as government to deal with imperfections, imperfections that we need to resolve, that we need to deal with, so that we can say that growth and development is on the way. And of course, it will even up to happiness, freedom, prosperity, and of course, an enhanced well-being of the citizen. That's the hallmark of government, really, and that's the essence of living. The essence of living is for us to deal with downsides, so that we can make progress, and advance towards the next step. That's why I'm saying that even in terms of news reporting, in terms of reporting some of these stories, the media can never shy away from them. Neither can public commentators look away from these things, because they are the outliers. They are the things that correctly or incorrectly capture the imagination, faster and better. They are the things that are easily more salacious. That are the things that appeal to readers, appeal to the audience more, and you can never do away with them. But the solution is having engagement around them, to be bold enough to have conversations, reasonable conversations around them, towards a resolution. And once that begins to happen, you will see that, confidence will grow. People will believe that action is being taken. But we cannot live in denial. No society grows by living in denial. You take on the challenges headlong, and of course, even if you do not achieve success in the immediate circumstances, it's just a matter of time before success comes, comes along. But even at that, even if in some cases where there are failures, people will be able to appreciate it. But in a situation where, less action is being seen, in the face of insecurity, in the face of fear, and violence, and you're asking me not to talk about it, or maybe to talk less about it, then it becomes very disturbing. I become very suspicious of your motive, and I'm definitely likely to look away from you, believing that you're not taking on the problem as the case should be ordinarily, Rufai.
Well, Dr. Adeniyi, quickly, somebody sent in a question. That's not directly from me, so I'm going to just read it out, because you've been talking about presidential media chats, engagements, the president, engaging the people a little bit more. And this person, who is well known to you, but I will not name him, he says, is it so much that the president is taciturn, or that his handlers are afraid of exposing him to the media because of his limited knowledge of governance issues? Or that his handlers deliberately keep him away from the media, because every time he speaks, he leaves a lot of mess for them to clear up? So that's the WhatsApp message from that viewer, and I'm sure he's waiting to listen to your response. But I would like you also, maybe when we return from the break, to talk about this concern expressed by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Kano yesterday, when he pointed out that, look, government is competing with bandits and terrorists to engage young Nigerians. And he thinks that the way forward is to recruit about 50 million Nigerian youths into the military and into the police and other security agencies as a way of keeping them engaged. And that we don't need to talk about certificates or literacy. Just give them the gun and let them keep themselves busy defending Nigeria. But we'll take your response after this break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Dr. Adeniyi.
Okay.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our guest is still Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Mass Communication, Baze University in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Dr. Adeniyi, thank you very much for staying with us. Well, I had two questions for you. The one that was sent in by a viewer, and then the additional one about what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu said yesterday. Over to you. Hello? Hello, Dr. Adeniyi, we're not hearing you here. Okay.
Oh my God.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Okay, now it's better. Please
okay, that's fine. Yes. Yeah, so I was going to say that I may not necessarily subscribe to the long-standing notion that the president, is no longer, there, that he's been stage managed on all counts, because we have seen instances where he's been very, very interactive, during courtesy calls, at meetings, and even while doing public presentations. Yesterday, we listened to him at the colloquium by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Otomaki's birthday, and I do not know how much we expect of a president in terms of relaying information. But the question is, how, to what extent can he be dialogic? And even at that, we can also give him some credit that he can be if he offers himself. I think this thing is just largely attitudinal, largely a matter of his what his aides have called style, which has turned problematic, in the leadership of a very complex nation like Nigeria. We need a president who can be very engaging, who can be very, who can be discursive, because there's quite a number of problems that you can resolve, solutions that you can find to problems, by coming out and engaging with the people, and of course, we have seen less of this from him, really. There's hardly anything that his spokesperson or his lieutenants can actually do other than to try to fill the gap. But unfortunately, they cannot also fill this gap. That's the contradiction, that's the irony of the situation. No matter how they try to explain it, they cannot fill this gap. That gap has to be filled by the president himself because, like in international politics, he's the chief diplomat. And in everyday government and governance, he's the chief spokesman of his own administration. And he has to volunteer more. He has to be much more forthcoming than he is so that that gap can be filled and we can appreciate him in that regard. So it's not about he being a robot or he being inactive or he being senile. Yes, he's a septuagenarian. As an old person, we know that there are limitations, but even at that, he still has, so the agility, at least to communicate with us, even on an everyday basis, if he chooses to do that. But even if he doesn't do it on an everyday basis, how about on a monthly basis, so that we can feel a sense of our self-esteem can be much more boosted than it presently is, where we won't feel that a president does not care much for us because he doesn't engage with us. That's to my view on the first question. And to the second, I think the suggestion of Asiwaju takes us back to, by the way, congratulations to him, but it takes us back to, the misconception that we keep having, even in the 21st century, that forces or that insurgents or crises, or insecurity can be dealt with only through kinetic means. I beg your pardon. We know that since 1945, we have hardly fought any symmetrical war. Most wars the world have been fighting have been completely asymmetrical, but curriculum in war studies is still focusing on the fighting of symmetrical war. So you have armies, you have weapons that are never deployed, whereas we have non-state actors, unsettling states, even strong states like the United States, have largely been unsettled by non-state actors. So we are paying less attention to these non-state actors, who engage us in asymmetrical warfare, who are largely invisible, using guerrilla scorched-earth tactics, and they disrupt the rhythm of regular armies that are ordinarily trained to fight symmetrical warfare. So what's happening? What's the problem with changing curriculum in war studies, and concentrating on the fighting non-state, on fighting asymmetrical war, rather than the present concentration on fighting symmetrical warfare? We see it happening, and we see the division, the multiplicity of non-state actors. We saw insurgents, kidnappers, and bandits coming up around us, and now we are seeing those of them who are very regular, political agitators like Sunday Igboho, like Nnamdi Kanu, non-state actors, but whose impact are being felt and that cannot be dealt with by physical force, hard force, So we need to concentrate on the soft aspect. I recognize that lately the Nigerian army was talking about civil-military relation, but how well to what extent was that taken, was that furthered? So we should be concerned about intelligence, about soft aspect, realizing again that some of this violence emanate from exclusion. And once you exclude people from a system, through poverty, through unemployment, it leads to anger, and from anger it moves to violence, and violence that military or the security agencies that are trained only in the symmetrical warfare can hardly deal with. And that's why in over 12 years now we've been dealing with Boko Haram, and here we still are. So yes, Asiwaju, you can be commended for coming up with his own solution, but I beg to disagree that is not the solution. But we are still continuing with the kinetic means, saying that let's get more soldiers, more policemen. It's not going to solve the problem. Crime, violence is a byproduct of the contradictions in the society. And if you don't deal with these contradictions, I'm afraid you continue to see a manifestation of violence, which is a product fundamentally of exclusion that is possible in any society, and in a developing society like our own, where leaders have largely failed us over the years. Dr. Ruben, Tuntu, and Rufai.
Well, we only have a few minutes to go, but I'm sure you know Wilfred Owen's poem where he quoted the Roman poet Horace, Dulce est decorum pro patria mori. It is a lie. It is not sweet and fitting to die for your country. It is just not, unless it's absolutely necessary. So having 50 million more cannon fodder, I don't really think is the answer. But since we're talking non-state actors, what do you think of a more benign kind, where you have recent reports of Sheikh Husani approaching Sheikh Gumi about the issue, over 2 weeks, of the students that were kidnapped and also members of the Redeemed Church in Kaduna State. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a shame that we've not been able to rescue those students, but again, a sign of our inadequacy. But again, sometimes you want to believe that these kidnappers, are engaging in this because of the lucrativeness of the business, very lucrative, all within a second, to get millions of naira, and it becomes much more attractive, and the cycle can continue. But that's why sometimes I want to commend the stance of Governor El-Rufai that he's not going to negotiate with them and he's not going to pay any ransom. In the short run, we may be thinking of some quick solution. Maybe in the short run, we think of some quick solution. But in the longer run, we have to be concerned about instituting some framework, that will be more satisfying, that will revolve around, resolving the problem of poverty, the problem of deindustrialization around those sectors where those bandits and kidnappers are thriving, and a problem of ensuring that governance is also present in those sectors. But we have a complete absence of government, especially at the local government level, and of course, alternative people are coming in the form of non-state actors, armed ones, to take over the rate of affairs, which is very unfortunate. So it's a wake-up call for us all, but in the face of this, I think we need better action from government, irrespective of the efforts that some of them are actually putting in place, to help us resolve this continuing crisis. Dr. Bati, Tuntu, and Rufai.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi, for your insights and for joining us this morning on The Morning Show.